Alright, today I have a 2003 BMW 330 Ci. Customers complaining of check engine light, stalling, rough running, all that stuff. So, if I go to my scan data, I have a 313 misfire detected with low fuel. It is low on fuel. Two manufacturer specific codes, 1345, 1083, System Lean, another manufacturer specific code, and the other System Lean. So I'm going to look at these ones, and I'm also going to go in with the Euro software and see what codes those are, and I'll try to correlate them all and pick a game plan. Alright, with a different chip, different adapter, it's going to identify the computer. I'm going to go to codes. I have all of those: O2, bank 2, control deviation, control limit, misfires on 5-4, bank 1 limit, secondary air system, misfires on 1, 3, and 2, everything but 6. So I'm going to try to line all these codes up and see which ones are the same as the others, if you will, and then we'll see where we're at. Okay, with all the misfire codes and the fuel trim codes, I'm gonna go with the actual System Lean codes first. You can see right now it says it's in closed loop. If you look at my short-term fuel trim, bank 1 and bank 2 are 27.3. They both maxed out 27.3. Now right now it's in closed loop. Should have paid attention to what happens here. If you look, if I can do it fast enough, my oxygen sensor, bank 1, sensor 1 is 0.03, and bank 2, sensor 1, 0.05. I mean, they're pegged lean, and you can see my fuel trim still at 27.3, but you have to do this kind of quick, because what you're going to see here in a second is the fuel trim is going to actually just go to 0, and you can get fooled by this because it's going into a limp mode, a fault mode, and it actually says when it goes, see right there, fuel system 1 and 2 closed loop. Hopefully it happens fast so we don't get bored here, but it'll actually go into a fault mode, and I can't see them all on this scanner here, but here's my fuel trims again. See if they can drop out. See, one is actually trying to respond. There you go. Open loop fault. So what that is it just went into open loop because of a fault, and it's going to start ignoring everything. And you see my fuel trim's 18%. It's actually starting to run rough now because it's picking values, but it's not doing a good job because my O2 voltage now is at 0.01 and 0.03, so it is running super lean. I can probably make all those misfires go away and all the fuel trim codes. I'm not sure about the air pump yet, but let's look for that. Okay, I'm looking at the mass airflow signal here just because if I have that big of a vacuum leak, it's probably, well, it is unmetered air. So let's see if when I repair this, we'll get a better reading there, and we'll have a baseline to go by. But you can see I'm at like a half a volt, 0.57. So what I'm going to do is, I already took the air cleaner housing off. Got these clips all the way around it. A couple of them are a little bit tougher to get to, but got some there and there. I'm going to actually take the housing off and get down underneath and see because I've read some bulletins, at least I've seen some posts somewhere about the PCV system. There's the breather end going into the valve cover right there, and some kind of hose on there that I don't know if I've seen on any other car before, so someone could have been in here messing with it. So I'm going to take the air tube out, and I have a Harbor Freight kind of camera that we can look in there too and see. So, well, this one may not be as fun as I wanted it to be. I was just playing around here when I hit pause and I reached my hand down behind the boot where the idle air control motor tube comes off, and it started changing. You can see I put my finger in a big hole, and I'm already increasing in voltage with my mass airflow sensor, so I'll pull that off and we'll see what we got. That boot's a pain in the butt to get to the worm clamps on the throttle body side, so you might as well just bite the bullet, take this stuff off, take this little intake duct out for the pollen filter, and you take those Torx bolts, one right there, I think there's 4 of them, there, and get this cowl piece out of your way, and then there's a shield over here you can take off around the master cylinder for easier access. So I'm going to take that off. I'll be back. Got the cowl piece off. It's out of the way. Move the harness out of the way. You have a vacuum line to the booster here. Slide that, and there's a twist clip right here, and one back in there. Oops. Now I got to look for that. Darn it. But then you can see, take the gaskets out, and this piece is loose, so fight it around the vacuum line, get it out, and I'll have a lot better access. Alright, with that thing out of the way, I just pulled the vacuum line out of the booster to allow me to get that, and if you look down at the air boot, I don't know if you'll be able to see it, the part here that goes to the idle air control valve, it's torn right, and you can kind of see the wrinkles. I'll put a mirror there so you can see it. If you look in my mirror, you can see the part I felt with my finger. I was plugging that up, making the car run actually a little bit smoother, so I'm going to pull the boot off and try to doctor it up for now. Have the customer order one. It's the used car guy again, and I'm gonna, like I said, tape this up and see if I can get a good result with my fuel trims, and we'll go from there. Alright, got the boot off, and you can see right there, this is a pretty good source of unmetered air. So just to make sure I don't have another problem, I'm gonna probably put some duct tape around that, a little bit of RTV maybe, and put it back in and see where my trims are at and see if I need to go further. Alright, I got it back in. Just used some RTV and some electrical tape to seal that up and see if we have a different result. And if anyone is wondering, there's my clip I lost, just in case, right there. So I'll grab that too. Alright, with it running, I'm up to 80, 82, 84. And if I go to my, it's going open, there we go. Go to closed loop. Look at my fuel trims at 19 and 17. Let's see if they start dropping or not. Well, they're lower than 27, but looks like I still have another issue. So I'm gonna have to keep going because I don't like what I see there. With these plastic intakes, everything sounds like a vacuum leak. You can see I'm still 17–18%. But if I take some carb clean and I spray down this, there's some vacuum hose, some PCV hoses down under here. If I spray along there, you'll see my fuel trims actually go down again to 11, 14. So I still have a vacuum leak. You can see I hit it. I just gotta find it. So gotta take more stuff apart. There it goes back up. Alright. Being that I don't know a whole lot about BMWs, I think I'm dealing with the PCV system. You can see I'm at actually negative on my short terms right now. I have a vacuum gauge hooked up to the PCV, the breather end of it, and if I cap, with that out of play, if I cap the valve cover port out off and then let go, it actually builds up pressure. I can show that. So it's not an internal leak, but I think the PCV valve is actually stuck open. You can see the blow by whenever I let the pressure build up here. But when I take my test vacuum hose out of the PCV hose, my fuel trim starts going nuts. It'll go all the way back up into the 20s. It'll settle back down, but see, it's going positive right now. It's continuing to go positive. Already 9, 10. My battery's gonna die. You can see it's going up into the 15 to 20 range. And if I plug that back up, I'm at 25. You'll see it start dropping. There it goes. I'm pretty sure I have a PCV problem, which is one of the bulletins or something I read, so try to figure out how to do that, and maybe it will be fixed. Alright, I never filmed the whole process. There is a good video I saw. It was like a 4-part video on how to change this thing, but what I did is I took the power steering reservoir off. There's a bracket for the purge valve, couple bolts for this wiring harness here, and the dipstick tube down there has a bolt. Swing all that out of the way so you can get to it, and they're just, these things plug into like the idle air control and a oil pressure switch or something like that. Also had to pull the throttle body off for 10mm bolts, and the other end coming from over here, you have a vacuum port under here that goes to this tube right here with a Y and runs under the intake, and 2 Torx bolts under there. I'm not going to be able to show you that, but then you have the drain hose right there, and that one goes down into the dipstick tube for the oil separator that's built into this valve. And the valve looks like this, and from what I could tell, it's kind of like a diaphragm, almost like a back pressure transducer type thing with the old EGR valves, where you have an intake vacuum source here. This one here is the oil separator and return. You can see the gunk in it, and this one here is the big one that goes back up to the valve cover. And if you remember, when I was spraying it, I hooked it up to the new one because I wanted to show something. But when I was spraying and my fuel trim was changing with the carb clean, there's actually a crack in this pipe right there. I don't know if you can see it. So that would be my external leak, but there was still too much vacuum in the system. I think what it does is it, like I said, it uses back pressure to control a diaphragm up in this upper chamber. So I'll kind of, if I blow into this port and I plug the other two, I can make the thing move. So I'll let you hear it, because the other one is frozen. I'll probably tear it apart just so I can understand it a little bit more and figure out what the heck that vacuum port is for, if it's a test port or what. Don't know if you'll be able to hear this, but I can hear the mechanical function of the diaphragm when I plug these and just pull a little vacuum on this hose. And the other one doesn't do that, which I'm assuming why. This must regulate the actual vacuum to the engine. That's why I think I have just an internal vacuum leak, and it's driving my fuel trims crazy. So I'll put the new one in and we'll see where we're at. Well, I pulled this thing apart and you can see it's full of soot, oil, and crud. It probably hasn't been working for a while, probably building up too much crankcase pressure, letting too much oil flow through. But this is probably why it really didn't work the way it should. So there's a picture of the inside. There's the diaphragm and a spring, and if I can loosen this from the vise, the inside. Okay, here's my somewhat educated guess. Here's the port for the intake vacuum, and it's going to come down through the elbow, and vacuum's going to be in this hole. And for vacuum to get back out to the valve cover, which is this one, or into the oil dipstick tube down into the oil pan for this one, because this is under spring pressure and the valve sits here, the vacuum is probably, this part goes here. The vacuum, you can see the sealing, see the ring in the center. So that's what seals the vacuum from being too excessive, and it's fighting spring pressure. But this didn't move because of all the crud. That's fine. But my guess is how it works is whenever back pressure from combustion builds up either in the oil pan or the top end of the engine, it's going to then come through this port and force the diaphragm out of the way, allowing the vacuum to pull the pressure out of the system. So this valve must flutter a lot. And we saw on the test that mine was kind of just full vacuum, and when I plugged it, it changed what I wanted it to change. So there's a educated guess on how that works, and this is an oil separator, they say. So there you go. Didn't work because everything's plastic. This is all from BMW. Guy said it was about 150 bucks for everything. So tank 2 went into close. Tank 1. Go down to our fuel trim. And my short terms at 8 and 13, which is way better than 20. Let's see what happens when the sensors start working. See if it drops more. course you want 0. But with this car, with the mileage that's on it, I mean, 8 and 10 is still not going to turn the light on, but let it warm up a little and see where we go. In case anyone's wondering, after it's run for about 10 minutes, my mass airflow voltage is pretty much the same, maybe a couple tenths. I don't think that test really helped anything. But we go to the proof right here. You can see my short-term fuel trim bank 2 sensor 1 and 1 sensor 1. I'm at 0, -3. If you look at my O2 sensor readings, you know, process data, so it's going to be slow. But I, you know, 0.75 on the bank 2 is at 5, so I'm not pegged at, you know, 0 or wherever the heck I was before. So I'm getting 700 millivolts easy, and it's cycling back and forth. But what I really wanted to see is my short-term fuel trim at pretty much 0. So I'm happy with the repair. Put the rest of it together and this car can go. Thanks for watching.